Hello and warm welcome to Power News. You've been to the power sector. I'm Juhi Rajput. Well, in today's episode, we're going to have a discussion on impact of Make in India and Skill India initiatives on solar sector. To discuss the same, we've been joined by Mr. Tarun Kapoor, Joint Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Mr. Prabav Mehta, Chairman, National Solar Energy Federation of India. Mr. Ajay Prakash Shrivastava, President, Solar Energy Society of India. And Vibhash Garg, Associate Director, PricewaterhouseCoopers. So I'd like to start the discussion with Mr. Kapoor. India pledges to reduce 33 to 35% carbon emissions by 2030. 40% of the country's electricity is expected to come from wind and solar by 2030. What opportunities does it provide to Indian renewable sector, mainly solar industry?
India is talking of huge expansion in renewable energy. We've already given a target of 175 gigawatts of installed capacity by 2022, and which means that by 2030 it will be much more. We've not formally announced a target for 2030, but then obviously it will be much higher than this. So if we reach 175 gigawatts, we are talking of more than 17% energy coming from renewables into the grid. And this is minus large hydro. And this involves an investment of over 200 billion US dollars equivalent. It also means that the technology, the capabilities to do manufacturing in India have to come up, have to improve. But then the price is also to remain at a level which is affordable. We can't increase the price of power because that's very important. The affordability of power must remain, and in order to ensure that affordability remains, the manufacturing has to be competitive. It has to be at international price. We have to match that. Initially, for some time, we can have some support, but after a while, the price and the quality has to be of international standards, which can happen. It's not difficult. It has happened in so many other sectors in the country. So I see huge opportunity in manufacturing in India of the main products, of their components, of material, and then development of projects, setting up projects, and then operating and running the projects.
Mr. Mehta, do you agree that solar manufacturing sector should get significantly cheaper and that there's also a need to have end-to-end solar manufacturing facility in the country?
What Mr. Kapoor just mentioned, that we must have a good manufacturing base. That at the same time, our manufacturers have to be globally competitive, both in terms of quality and in terms of price. Therefore, we are always advocating joint ventures, with technology providers from outside and our own people, our own manufacturers, and at a scale that is affordable. Just to give some numbers, our people may have 200 megawatts, 300 megawatts, 500 megawatts manufacturing capacity, but rest of the world, especially China, people start with 1 gigawatt. So we have to scale up manufacturing.
One of the major challenges with ramping up solar in India is the limited manufacturing capacity available. Solar manufacturing policy in India has not been effective enough. 40% of solar cell manufacturers have closed down, and overall industry capacity utilization is as low as 21%. So what do you think is being done to address this issue, and how could Indian manufacturing be made more competitive?
If we don't have a manufacturing capacity in India, then we are passing on our money, the money that is, Mr. Kapoor mentioned almost $200 billion. Just take solar, I think it would be about $100 billion. $100 billion, if you don't have a manufacturing capacity, all that money is going where? Going to other country. If it is used in our country, in manufacturing, it goes into our own economy. Government benefits from taxes. People benefit from it, those who get employed in this factory. Now, when we talk about Make in India, the purpose of that is to create employment in India, create economic activity in India. Because if you buy from any country, for example, what do? You take the money from your bank in India, or from a foreign bank, send it money to that country, get material from there and use it. What happens to the economy here? Maybe 1 lakh people get employed in installing those projects, But what happens to all the other people who actually can be employed in manufacturing? As Mr. Mehta mentioned, quality and price has to match. But for that, our government has to create some environment which is conducive to creating manufacturing at a level playing field. I call it a level playing field because I have to, if I'm a manufacturer by the way from the past, so if I have to compete with the Chinese, then I should have a level playing field with them. The kind of support their government gives to them, I expect from my government also here.
So like he thinks that to address this issue, level playing field needs to be created. So what is being done at the government level?
Now recently we introduced this domestic content requirement in some of our tenders, and with that the domestic industry did get revived to some extent. We are now expanding it, though we got challenged in WTO and we have to change our strategy slightly in order to make it compliant with the WTO requirements. But we are committed to that, and from government side we are committed to supporting the domestic industry to become competitive. So for some time we realized that they need some support. The government has tried to remove duties and taxes on input, on all types of input materials, so that the Indian manufacturer becomes competitive. Now see, we if we have to do this 100 gigawatts, 1 lakh megawatts, then, and if you look at our plan, then this year we should be commissioning around say 10,500 megawatts. Next year it could be 15,000 megawatts, but on a thumb rule we would say that we need to commission more than 10,000 megawatts every year. So therefore, for that 10,000 megawatt, you need domestic capacity of 10,000 megawatt, which currently I told you for cells it's just about 1,000 megawatt, which might go to 2,500 megawatts by December. And 2 more plants are coming up. One is 500 megawatt, another 1,000 megawatt. So maybe we are looking at say around 3,000–4,000 megawatt capacity in the next year or so. So in the next 4–5 years, I expect the capacity to go up to say 7–8,000 megawatt per annum.
So Mr. Shrivastava, can you please throw some light on, as Mr. Tarun Kapoor said, that it might take 3–4 years to reach 6–7,000 per year kind of a capacity. So what additional support do you think is required from the government to boost up manufacturing capacity?
What I understand from Mr. Kapoor is that whatever capacity is available in India, they will allocate that much domestic requirement. So that is a very good thing that the government is doing. That suppose we are able to manufacture 1,000 megawatt, then you will say, okay, let's do 1,000 megawatt power plant. That is one good thing. One of the difficulty that we face in manufacturing is basic thing which any manufacturer faces in India is high interest rates, high rate of electricity, things like that. And I think, Mr. Kapoor, there was a discussion in your ministry some time ago that you want to start a manufacturing support policy or something like that.
Yeah, we have something in the pipeline. There was a committee which was set up, and that committee has given its report, and based on that now we are making a scheme so that the existing domestic manufacturers also need support, but then we need to get very large scale manufacturing also, and then we need to get manufacturing into wafers and into ingot wafers, and then also into polysilicon, which is not there in the country right now. So that policy does address all this.
100 gigawatt of solar capacity addition by 2022 is almost a 5-time jump over the target set initially under JNNSM. How much does this target looks achievable under present circumstances?
If we want to achieve 100 gigawatts, manufacturing alone is not the factor. There are other important factors, that terms and conditions I was mentioning, is that DISCOM, ultimately it is the DISCOM which will play the role. They have to accept this renewable energy. Mainstreaming renewable energy is important in the sense that we have to not only change the mindset of the DISCOMs, but the people who are giving directions to DISCOM, because unless those people are convinced, the DISCOMs will not play the ball. They would like to protect their turf. Somehow that mindset has to be changed. Of course, that health has to be changed, for which government has done good scheme by Uday, etc. But we need to really address that DISCOM first. Even for the rooftop and net metering will be operationalized only when the DISCOM is convinced. We have 25 states which have gone for net metering, but how many successful cases are there? Maybe 1 state, 2 state, 1.5 state. So it is because we have to convince the DISCOM.
Sir, it has to be governed by the law. When we have RPO obligations, it has to be strictly enforced.
Yes.
You cannot say that DISCOM will say, I don't like it. See, in Delhi, about 4 or 5 years ago, they said, no diesel buses, no diesel trucks can ply. Now, I had a lot of people had buses and which were actually working very well, but we had to change it because it's the law. It was a loss to us. It was a considerable loss to many of us who had buses and trucks for various purposes, but we had to change it because the law says so. Now, if the law says that you have to produce clean energy, have at least 15% or 20% clean energy mixed in your generation or distribution, that they have to follow that. How can they say no?
We as National Federation are filing petitions across the country for RPO compliance, because RPO compliance is the key, as Mr. Shrivastava has rightly pointed out, and in turn renewable energy certificates, REC, should also be bankable. Then this third party sale, etc. will take place. At the same time, open access also we need to have common policy, which in all states, because some states are charging as high as 1.5 rupees, thereby jacking up the renewable energy cost. So unless that is changed, it is very difficult.
So major initiatives for renewable energy are accelerated depreciation, generation based incentive, feed-in tariff and viability gap funding. So how successful have these initiatives been to boost solar sector in country in last 2-3 years? Do you think these have been successful, these initiatives?
In the solar sector, AD benefit has not been used much.
Okay.
In wind, it is being used very extensively, but in solar, very little AD benefit has been taken. But that benefit, of course, is there, and in the future, I don't rule out, maybe large number of projects might come up with AD benefit. In the budget, the AD, depreciation which one can claim in the first year has been reduced from 80% to 40%, so that benefit also then goes down. And this has been done for everyone, not just for solar, it's been done universally for everyone. We tried out some new things like viability gap fund, which probably now other countries are also copying. We developed that model. We tried out bundling with thermal power, with cheap thermal power, that also worked very well. So in India, we tried out a lot of things which are very innovative, which probably other countries are also looking at how we are doing it.
So coming to Make in India, International Solar Alliance and FTI, Make in India initiative is to attract a large-scale investment for the renewable energy sector in India and provide an opportunity for the global investment community to connect with renewable energy stakeholders in India. So how has been the progress so far on this front?
So on Make in India, as I mentioned earlier, that through just maybe assurances that Indian market is there and it's a big market, we have been able to attract some investment in the sector. And there is investment coming in from international companies also. Some large companies are making investments into India.
Mr. Mehta, creation of International Solar Alliance, which is first international intergovernmental organization of 121 countries to have its headquarters in India, is a great achievement. How could this help in addressing the challenges faced in achieving energy security, access to energy technology and finance?
See, with this greater alliance, which industry has also responded by forming a global solar council with which I am connected, the main aim we want to work in synergy is to bring investment and also bring technology where it is not there. So, technology infusion will be one of the important goals. Another important goal is creating capacities. So, skills, that also is very important, which is not applicable only for India, but rest of the countries with good solar radiation, Africa and others. So, International Solar Alliance is surely going to do that good job, and we from industry will collaborate.
Synergies between flagships Make in India program to the establishment of the International Solar Alliance is important. These programs offer the greatest opportunity but also need the attention.
This is the only initiative so far which has a large private sector direct involvement. Otherwise, it was all between the governments. So this is, on those aspects, this is one of the best alliance which has been thought of. Now, private sector is infusing money, and as I said, that you have skills, you have technology, you have money flowing in, and within these 121 countries, we will lie somewhere in between, not the developed, neither the least developed. So we would be giving benefits to the African nation, we would be getting benefits from the developed countries. So this whole, the circle is going to benefit the whole industry, every countries and all the countries.
Well, Mr. Shrivastava, FDI has been scaled up to 100% under the automatic route permitted in renewable energy sector. How much has this benefited the solar manufacturing sector?
I don't think much FDI has come so far, but yes, there is a possibility that FDI will come, and it will come only when our government brings out some kind of special incentive for the manufacturing sector. As Mr. Kapoor mentioned, they are thinking about it. Manufacturing sector has to be boosted. Right now, not only solar, if you look across the country, the manufacturing sector is not increasing as much as it should be, as we are considering our GDP will be 6%, 8% and all that. So the government has to bring some special incentive for the manufacturing sector. And once that is there, once people know, yes, there is a big market, and there is a market which is going to be there for a long time, then only FDI comes in.
Mr. Kapoor, I think he pointed out 2-3 things, that cost of capital, input power cost and tax incentives, and some special incentives from government side. So do you think anything is being done to attract this FDI?
Yeah, because when we are asking for some foreign companies to invest in India, we expect them that they probably borrow outside, and the cost of capital for them would be lower. But then because they get returns in rupees, and they have to hedge against the currency, so hedging costs being high, or the danger that rupee might go down, so because of that, then the net cost of capital for them also remains a little high. And plus they need some assurances, they need to be competitive, and if other countries where they are setting up manufacturing, say China or maybe certain other countries, are offering some incentives which we are not, then the industry coming to India may not be as competitive as those countries. So volume is one thing, because it is said that huge volume and huge capacities would help bring down the cost of manufacturing, but that is one thing. There are some other incentives also which governments are giving in other countries. So we need to look at that. So we are considering all that, and that's why we are going to come up with something which might be there to support the domestic industry. Already certain things have happened, which I mentioned earlier, and we understand that the domestic industry needs support.
One possible thing is interest subvention, because ultimately it is the interest cost that is creating the problem, and we have a good corpus of the National Clean Energy Fund, which the minister other day said is 40,000 crores, but out of that 20,000 crores is going for environment and others, but we still have 20,000 crores available. But without naming the numbers, if we can give this interest subvention, it makes all the difference. And there is already example available in Gujarat, from where I come. Capital subsidy is something that we give to all new projects. So banks evaluate the project, and we give that interest subvention straight to the bank, not to the person. So his interest burden comes down, and all this is provided for in the budget.
And there was a policy of doing that actually. When I set up my factory, I got interest benefit from the ministry, but then they suddenly stopped that. In about 12 years ago, there was 50% interest was being borne by MNRE, and it was being given through IREDA. But for some reason, government stopped that.
Actually, when I mentioned these terms and conditions apply, we have made a wish list. If we want to achieve 100,000 megawatt, wish list would include RPO, REC, then interest subvention, large deployment of mini and microgrids. These are the things that we have given.
India's research and development standards $0.6 billion US dollars, which is 14 times less than that of the US or China and 23 times less than that of Europe. Don't you think we need to improve our R&D policy as well?
Our R&D so far has been more in the lines of being able to adopt technologies which are developed or available elsewhere in the world. Very little original research has been taking place. There is no doubt we need to put in more efforts on R&D. The good thing is that a lot of Indian scientists are working in, say, US or in Europe in laboratories which have developed very good technologies. So therefore, if we look at the manpower, then that is available, knowledge is available within India also and outside India with Indians who are working outside. And we have our own National Institute of Solar Energy, which became autonomous just a year ago, and we are in the process of trying to strengthen it. So on R&D, we have a long way to go, and this year, at least in our ministry, the budget has been doubled from last year. A major thrust has been given on R&D. So gradually, we will ensure that more money goes in, and then this sector is.
I think as far as R&D is concerned, we need a combination. That our own people are also doing research which I am aware of. For instance, in Jaipur University, there is a PhD student who is taking the solar cell efficiency to 50%. That is what his aim is. And in rest of the world, for instance, in NREL, National Renewable Energy Laboratory, Colorado, USA, they have already achieved 42%. So it has to be commercialized. And I am connected with the space technology. You know, all these spacecrafts, they use very high efficiency solar cells, because otherwise they cannot survive. They are known as space hardened solar cells, and those efficiencies commercially manufactured are 36% plus. I can give you the name of the company also, Sharp of Japan, which is supplying to space. So the point is that elsewhere the technology development R&D is there. We have to marry it with our own effort. IISc Bangalore is also doing work on this. IIT Mumbai is also doing work on this. So we have to somehow see that all these efforts bear fruit. So that is as far as the basic research is concerned.
Now coming to Skill India initiative, current unavailability of appropriately skilled manpower for construction and commissioning of solar unit is a significant challenge to the solar industry. So how is government planning to fill this gap through Skill India initiative?
There are several initiatives. From our ministry, we have something called Surya Mitra. Under that, the plan is to train 50,000 youth. There is a 3-month training program, and that is a technician level program. Then we need to train people at all the levels. We need skills, very basic skills at the village level, which can be given in just a one week training. We need skills at this level where you have a dedicated person who with a 3 months or 6 months or some larger training, or a ITI skilled person who can repair, manufacture, assemble, all that. Then you need skills at the engineering level, diploma level, engineering level, and or the R&D or total specialist level also. The numbers become very large if you are talking of huge capacities of rooftop. Rooftop is where you need a lot of manpower. That is a sector which will create more jobs than the large power plants. So for a large power plant, in the long run, you need just about, say, 2 persons per megawatt. In rooftop, you need 3 or 4 persons per megawatt. So that is the kind of numbers we are talking of. And while our ministry is running these programs, the main campaign on Skilling India, which is going on, there also solar is a very major component. So some training organizations have been identified, existing training organizations, so their capacities are being enhanced. and they are taking on large number of programs for training and for skill development. Existing ITIs are being used. So we do have a massive plan. We also want to use the manufacturers and the organizations or companies who are into solar sector, so that they can also train some technicians and some individuals at various levels or in various skills which are required in the sector. So I think we are moving maybe a little slow on this, but we are picking up.
So we also need a synergy between the Startup India initiative and the country's renewable energy targets to bring more first generation entrepreneurs to the sector. So what is being done to create this kind of a synergy in the country?
Okay, I'll briefly respond and then probably others can respond. This is the sector with the maximum number of startups. This is a sector where youth is coming in. So it's very good to see how many companies now, for example, just take the case of channel partners. In rooftop, we started with just about 100. Now we have more than 500 channel partners and at least 300-400 more applications. They're all companies and most of them are with young individuals. In our channel partner scheme, we introduced a separate category, which was a category for new entrepreneurs. Because otherwise we have requirements like you should have worked for so much time and you should have rating by a credit rating agency and you should have that much money or some investments. So for this category we relaxed all that. We said if there are professionals in that new startup with some professional qualifications, then they would be allowed to come in as channel partners without any of these, just so that a start is given to them. On the off-grid side also we have more than 350 or so channel partners. And what I find is that there are a large number of young graduates, pass out from engineering colleges or from business schools, who are coming up with very innovative ideas. They are going into the villages, trying to provide maybe energy through biogas, trying to provide energy through solar, various other methods. Now these startups do need support. They need financial support, they need technical support, they need guidance. So this program which government has now launched, where some support is available, I think renewable sector would be the biggest beneficiary of this.
So we'll take a quick comment from Mr. Garg and Mr. Mehta that 100 gigawatt of solar comes with a promise of more than 1 million jobs. 1 million full-time jobs and 3 lakh long-term recurring jobs would be created in the project planning, construction, commissioning, operations and maintenance of 100 gigawatt of installed solar capacity. So how could this challenge be converted into several opportunities? I mean, space is a little slow right now, as Mr. Kapoor said that, but how can we expedite this and what all could be done?
See, as far as solar sector is concerned, we always say that we couldn't have asked for more. We wanted volume, we have got it. We wanted rooftop, we have got it. Tenders are pouring in. Solar companies are busy. Costs are coming down. So all this is good news, which if you are going to increase your target 5 times from what it was earlier, obviously in turn it is creating that much employment opportunities, that much entrepreneurship opportunities, startups, you name it, and the opportunity is there because volume is there. And that is what we are advocating for, and we are very happy that the government has listened to us, giving high priority to solar. And perhaps today everyone says that the kind of importance that solar energy has in the country, no other sector can claim.
Well, add to few things. If you look at in last 3-4 years, I was going through a report. We have added, because of the solar sector, we have added close to 24,000 jobs, full-time direct jobs, and many half-time or part-time indirect jobs as well. So, and parallelly, Government of India has also recognized that you will require a lot of technical skilled manpower at every level, as Kapoor was saying. So we have started various training programs, and various private sector training programs are also on. So all of that will create close to 1 million jobs by 2022. I believe pretty much.
If you just look at the off-grid sector in the villages, as estimate says 6 lakhs villages need connection electricity. You talk about putting some kind of a mini grid, small grid, or even rooftops, or even charging stations for Lalton, and take an average of 2 or 3 people each village. You are talking about 12 to 18 lakhs jobs just in those villages, and doesn't need big skill. Those people who have to maintain the system in a village, suppose you put a small mini grid or some connect some houses together, or put everybody's house, each what we used to call home lighting systems. Yes. Those kind of system, even to maintain that, you need 2 or 3 people in a village.
Alright, so we'll take last few comments from all the panelists, that according to you, Mr. Shrivastava, what immediate actions need to be taken to meet the 100 gigawatt target on time, bring down the cost, but at the same time create a level playing field for the domestic manufacturers, so that Make in India and Skill India programs are also successful?
I think, as I mentioned in earlier discussion, the manufacturing policy has to be supportive in a way to the local domestic manufacturers, and creating market for them. One of if the WTO and all these problem, there could be some kind of mechanism where the government can say that, for example, NABARD scheme, where you are giving almost 30 or 40% incentive. That kind of a scheme has to be fulfilled by the domestic manufacturer, because it is supported by the government. If the government brings out these small pockets somewhere where WTO will not create a problem, because no big American company is going to make a small 75 watt module and bring it to the country. So that kind of thing will boost manufacturing, and also small men, because as we mentioned in the discussion earlier, the small players lose out on this big, when you talk about 1 gigawatt installed capacity manufacturing plant, and there are small manufacturers, there are small module maker, even small cell makers.
You should support your local manufacturers, but these local manufacturers will also need to compete with those international manufacturers. See, end of it, somebody is going to pay the price for it. See, if your local manufacturers, if you support them, and the cost of module which they are producing is more, end of it, it will be loaded on the tariff and will be recovered from your pocket only. So they will also have to, in the overall reduction of prices, they will have to compete, and they will have to come out with their own either niche market or their own unique selling points on which they can compete, and this whole sector can become sustainable.
So I think, Mr. Kapoor, one last final comment from you, and what do you think? You've just listened to all the wish list and what sector is looking for. So what do you think, what all can be done?
Most critical thing is that everyone should very strongly believe that this sector has to be pushed, supported, and taken to the level where we envisage it to go. And if that push comes from all sides, then certainly we will achieve our target. It's not just a target for the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy to achieve. It cannot be. It cannot be. It has to be with active collaboration from everyone. And I think we are getting that support. So that's the positive point.
So on this positive note, I'd like to end this discussion here. Thank you very much, all the panelists, for joining us here for this discussion. Thank you.